I bet your bookcases have a lot more paperbacks than hardcovers, and for a very good reason. The latter may be more attractive and age better, but they're also a lot more expensive. And in the early 20th century, with the Great Depression in full swing, hardcovers were so expensive that people stopped buying books. What do? You make smaller, cheaper, lower quality paperbacks, of course. The British began producing small paperback editions of books in the mid to late 19th century, aimed at entertaining the increasing number of people who were riding trains. But paperbacks didn't really kick off until 1935, when Alan Lane, a British publisher whose company was struggling through the Great Depression, realized that something big needed to change if they were going to survive. He launched a new brand familiar to every reader today, Penguin Books. They were small, lightweight, and cost only 10 cents a copy. Like the generic foodstuffs of the 1970s and 80s, the books were simple and unembellished, color-coded by genre, and boasted the classic penguin logo that Lane's secretary sketched while visiting the zoo. Lane didn't go with established classics, but rather leaned into the big names of the day, authors like Hemingway and Christie, and he sold a lot of his wares at department stores. The British public loved them for their low cost and portability, and Lane sold millions. Based on Lane's success, American publisher Robert de Graaf was inspired to try the same thing in America. He founded the appropriately named Pocket Books and began selling his paperbacks with colorfully illustrated covers to grab people's attention at newsstands, subways, and drugstores rather than bookstores. Unlike Lane, de Graaf published both contemporary authors like Steinbeck as well as classics by Bronte and Shakespeare. It kicked off a new literacy craze, with some women insisting that you could size up a man based on whether or not he had a bulge in his pocket. His back pocket, that is. Paperbacks became a way of life during World War II, when soldiers were issued books small enough to fit in the pockets of their uniforms. The U.S. military distributed 122 million Armed Service Edition paperbacks to troops fighting in the European and Pacific theaters. Unlike traditional paperbacks, most of these were bound on the short side rather than the long side. The books were, according to soldiers, quote, as popular as pinup girls, and throwing one away rather than passing it on to another serviceman was tantamount to striking your grandmother. Veterans were so hooked that they drove paperback sales long after the war ended. While paperbacks started out as reprints of existing, successful hardcover books, publishers soon realized that they could expand their offerings with paperback exclusives. This simple pivot revolutionized publishing and led to an explosion in westerns, whodunits, sci-fi, and romance. Genre fiction was off and running. Stay curious, my friends.